The silence in the apartment after I hit post was the loudest silence I had ever heard. It was a heavy, waiting quiet, thick with the echo of the click that had just set my world, and his, on an irreversible path. For a full, agonizing minute, nothing happened. The digital void stared back at me, and a sliver of doubt, cold and sharp, tried to pierce my resolve. Had I just imagined it all? Had I destroyed everything over a misunderstanding? Then, my phone buzzed. A single, stark notification lit up the screen. Your Aunt Carol commented on a photo. My heart, which felt like it had stopped, leapt into my throat so violently I could barely breathe. I clicked on it with a trembling finger. There it was. Aunt Carol, his sweet, church-going aunt who always sent us homemade jam at Christmas, had written on the picture of our happy, smiling faces. Lena, my dear, her comment read, what on earth is this about? Are you okay? Before I could even process her words, another notification. A direct message from his sister. Lena, call me immediately. What's going on? The web was starting to vibrate. I could feel it, a low hum of awakening attention spreading through the digital network that connected everyone Mark had ever known. I didn't respond. Not yet. This was all part of the plan. The evidence needed to speak for itself, in its own voice, without my emotion clouding its stark reality. I took a slow, deliberate breath, my hand steadying over the keyboard. I was no longer the heartbroken girlfriend. I was a prosecutor presenting a case to the most important jury imaginable, the people who loved him. I began to comment on my own post, systematically, calmly, with a cold precision that felt both alien and empowering. The first comment was a screenshot of the restaurant reservation for the Crimson Vine, for two, under the name Mark and Chloe. My caption was simple, factual, devastating. This was on the night of our anniversary. He told me he was at a work event. I hit enter. The truth, now a matter of public record, was no longer mine alone to carry. The second comment was a screenshot of a flirty email exchange, time-stamped to a Tuesday evening when he was supposedly working late. Just one of many conversations he was having while sitting next to me on the couch, I wrote. I could almost feel the collective gasp, the ripple of disbelief turning into dawning horror across the city as people saw it. The third was the hotel confirmation. A weekend getaway I knew nothing about. Each piece of evidence was a brick, and I was methodically building the wall that would forever separate the man they thought they knew from the man he truly was. My phone started to ring, the shrill sound cutting through the quiet. It was his sister again, then his mother, then his best friend, David. I let them all go to voicemail. I imagined the texts flying between them, a frantic, panicked hive of activity. I could see the viewer count on the album climbing. Dozens of people. His entire world was now gathered in this digital space, watching in real time as the perfect facade crumbled into dust. Then, the text I had been waiting for. It lit up my screen, a frantic, all-caps scream from the man himself. Mark, what have you done? My phone is blowing up. Are you insane? A grim, cold smile touched my lips. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I did the one thing he would never expect. I took a screenshot of his frantic, panicked text and posted it as the next comment in the album. The caption was simple. His response to the truth being revealed. It was the final nail in his coffin. He wasn't sorry. He was caught. He wasn't remorseful. He was enraged that his secret was out. The unraveling was now complete, and I was broadcasting his meltdown live for everyone to see. It was chaotic, it was brutal, and it was utterly, profoundly effective. About an hour later, I heard the key fumble in the lock, a clumsy, desperate sound. The door flew open, and there he stood, a ghost of the man who had left in a tailored tuxedo just hours before. His face was a pale, waxy mask of shock, His tie was loose, his hair disheveled, his expensive suit jacket stained with what smelled like spilled whiskey. He looked like he had just been in a car crash. The gala, his perfect night of schmoozing and success, was forgotten. It was in ashes, and he was standing in the wreckage. You, he seethed, his voice trembling with a raw, venomous rage I had never seen in him before. It was primal. You ruined me. My boss saw that. My clients saw it. My parents are having a meltdown. I stood up from the couch slowly, feeling a calmness I hadn't felt in years settle deep into my bones. This was the moment, the confrontation I had played out in my head 1,000 times. "No, Mark," I said, my voice quiet but firm, cutting through his hysteria like a knife. "You ruined yourself. I just handed out the evidence." He stared at me, his eyes wide, and I saw the realization dawn in them. This wasn't the emotional, sobbing Lena he had left behind. This wasn't the woman he expected to find, broken and pleading for an explanation. This was someone else. Someone he had created with his lies. Someone cold, hard, and unwavering. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he whispered, his voice cracking, the anger giving way to a pathetic, whimpering terror. "Chloe's father. He's pulling out of the business deal with my dad. My job. My boss told me not to come in on Monday. It's over. Everything is over." "Actions have consequences," I said, the words simple and unadorned. "You spent a year building a secret life. Did you ever stop to think what would happen if the walls fell down?" He sank into the armchair, as if his legs had given out, his head collapsing into his hands. The facade of the powerful, successful man was gone, replaced by the pathetic core of a boy who had been caught. "It was a mistake," he mumbled into his palms, his voice thick with self-pity. "Just a stupid mistake." I walked to the hallway where my pre-packed bag was waiting. "It wasn't a mistake, Mark," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. What you did was a series of conscious, calculated choices. Every email you sent was a choice. Every lie you told was a choice. Every time you kissed me after being with her was a choice. And now, you have to live with the outcome of every single one of them." I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked towards the door. I was leaving. The apartment with the big windows, the life we had built, the man I thought I loved, I was leaving it all behind. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice small and broken, the question of a child watching his security blanket being taken away. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't look back. I couldn't give him that. There was nothing left for me in his face. "I'm going to start my life over," I said, the words feeling clean and true. "A life based on truth. You should try it sometime." And with that, I walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't give it a dramatic final bang. I closed it gently, a soft, precise click that was the final, quiet end to our loud, messy story. Behind me, I left a man whose entire world had been exposed, whose reputation was in tatters, and who was finally, utterly, alone with the truth he could no longer hide from. In the weeks that followed, the fallout continued to ripple outward, but I was no longer at the center of the storm. I had moved in with a friend, and I focused all my energy, all my pain, all my newfound clarity into my little shop. And you know what? It flourished. It wasn't just a business. It was my sanctuary. Without the constant emotional drain of a toxic relationship, without the weight of his lies and the energy I spent ignoring my own intuition, my creativity exploded. I had more drive, more passion, more original ideas than ever before. The shop wasn't so little anymore. It was a testament to what I could build when I was free. I heard things, of course. Mutual friends, unable to resist the drama, reached out with updates. Mark had lost his job. Not because he was fired outright, they were too clever for that, but because the environment had become so untenable, so thick with sideways glances and hushed conversations. that he had no choice but to resign. The scandal was too big, too public. His relationship with his family was strained, to say the least. They felt betrayed, not just on my behalf, but for the embarrassment he had brought upon them. The perfect son had shown his cracks, and the image they had cherished was shattered. As for Chloe, I learned through the grapevine that she had been just as much his victim as I was. He had told her we had broken up months ago, that I was a clingy, unstable ex who couldn't let go. She was horrified when the truth came out, disgusted that she had been an unwitting participant in his deception. She wanted nothing more to do with him. My act of exposure hadn't just been about punishment. It had been about liberation. It freed me. It freed her. And it potentially saved any other woman from walking into his carefully constructed web unknowingly. He tried to contact me once, about a month after I left. A long, rambling email that was a masterpiece of contradiction. It was full of self-pity, detailing how I had destroyed him, how he was a shell of a man. But woven through the pity was a thread of performative understanding. He said he got why I did it, that he was in therapy now, that he was a changed man. I read it once, sitting in my new apartment, the morning sun streaming through the window, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. It was just words. I selected the email and pressed delete. His journey was no longer my concern. He was a chapter I had closed, a book I had returned to the library. I had told my truth, and in doing so I had taken my power back. The world knew him for who he was, and more importantly, it knew me for who I was. A survivor. I wasn't the crazy ex. I wasn't the hysterical woman. I was the one who had refused to be silent. I was the one who believed, with every fiber of my being, that the truth, no matter how painful, was always, always better than the most comfortable lie. My life was no longer a perfect illusion. It was real. It had scars, deep ones that would probably always ache when it rained. It had memories, both good and bad, that I carried with me, but it was mine, authentic and honest. Every success, every failure, every quiet moment of peace belonged to me and me alone. And for the first time since that rainy Tuesday when a charming stranger offered me his umbrella, I was truly, completely, and unequivocally free. So, what is the lesson in all of this? Is it that revenge is sweet? In a way, yes, but it's not the sugary, empty sweetness of candy. It's the complex, bittersweet taste of justice. A flavor that lingers on the tongue and reminds you of the cost, of the battle fought, of the ground won. It's a taste you respect, not one you crave. This story isn't just about exposing a cheater. It's about the raw, unyielding power of truth in a world that often politely asks us to be quiet. We're socialized not to make a scene, to be the bigger person, to turn the other cheek, to forgive and forget for the sake of peace. But what about when that silence becomes a weapon used by the liar? What about when forgiveness is demanded from the victim before the perpetrator has even acknowledged the crime, let alone faced any form of accountability? My revenge was not an act of hate, though hate was the fuel that kept me warm in the beginning. It was, in its final form, an act of reclaiming my narrative. For too long, he controlled the story. He was the great boyfriend, the successful professional, the good son. I was the supporting character in his life. My exposure shifted that control irrevocably. It showed the world that the hero of his story was the villain of mine. It proved that my reality was just as valid, just as powerful as his fiction. The real moral, the one I want to etch into the heart of everyone who hears this, is this. You do not have to burn yourself to keep others warm. You do not have to swallow your pain, to choke down your truth, to protect the reputation of someone who willingly hurt you. Your truth is your power. Your voice is your sword and your shield. Speaking your truth is not just an option. It is your fundamental right. Was my method extreme? Perhaps. To some it will always seem that way. But his betrayal was extreme. It wasn't a single fleeting error in judgment. It was a year of my life, a year of my love, my trust, my future, built on a foundation of deliberate, calculated lies. I didn't choose a nuclear option for a minor offense. I chose a response that matched the catastrophic scale of the crime. I met his energy. I gave him a consequence that was proportionate to the damage he had inflicted. If you take anything from this story, let it be this: trust your intuition. That little voice in your head, the knot in your stomach, the cold feeling of doubt that you try to rationalize away, listen to it. When something feels wrong, it probably is. You deserve a love that is honest, even when the truth is difficult. You deserve a life that is real, vibrant, and authentic, not a beautiful illusion painted over a rotting frame. And you always have the right to speak your truth, to shout it from the rooftops if you have to. Because the truth is the kryptonite to every liar's Superman complex. It can shut down a lie faster than any argument, expose the darkest secrets hiding in plain sight, and bring the people who seem the strongest to their knees. It is the most formidable force on earth, and sometimes the most powerful, the most elegant, the most devastating form of revenge isn't violence or scheming. It's simply stepping aside, turning on the brightest lights you can find, and letting the world see a person for exactly who they truly are. The truth doesn't just set you free. It holds everyone else accountable, and in the end, that is the only justice that really, truly matters.